What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. I've got with me once again the P30 Pro. I heard a lot of great things about the camera. It's got a quad leica camera, 3 different focal lengths, and the 4th one to get those nice bokeh shots with some background blur. So I went ahead to test it out, got some test shots to see all the new features and to test out if it lives up to expectation. So let's check them out.
Starting off with the wide angle, it's pretty standard. We've got a wide field of view, no vignetting on the corners of the image, which is pretty good for a wide angle. Distortion is very minimal as well. This particular example does have an HDR feel to it, so we do notice a bit of halo in between the highlight and shadows area, but it's not too significant and the image still looks great regardless. Moving on to the 1x zoom, in my opinion, the image quality out of this particular example in the 1x zoom looks significantly better, less of an HDR look. I don't prefer the HDR look as much. No halo in the shadow highlight areas, and overall the image quality, in my opinion, looks much better. 5x zoom, now we've still got a lot of details. We're zoomed in significantly and the image is still sharp, really impressive at this point. Now here's where it starts to become a bit more insane. We zoomed into 10x. As you can see for yourself, the image quality is impressively insane. For reference, here's where we started, and this is how far zoomed in we have gone and still retained all the details and sharpness of the image. At this point, I am just mind blown. For such a small phone, you can zoom in all the way there and still get all the image details and quality out of it. Now this is the 50x hybrid zoom, one of the highlight features of this phone. It does start to lose image quality here. The sharpness is not as much. You can't see as much details, but once again, we're talking about a 50x zoom. So is it usable? Possibly, yeah. Is it as impressive as a 10x? Not really. In my opinion, the 10x is far more impressive for me. It retains most of the details at 10x. At 50x, it starts to lose most of its sharpness and image quality. So it's definitely an impressive feature, cool to have. For frame of reference, we can see here where we started at the wide angle and at 50x zoom. So definitely very impressive feature. But once again, like I mentioned, it's not that sharp. I also do want to mention that the colors out of it are not as accurate as you see them in real life. It is slightly more saturated, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because some people just want the best looking images right out the phone without doing any post-processing or editing. And sometimes you just want a slightly more saturated image. Like over here, it was cloudy, very bland. So that tiny bit of saturation that added, it made the image look a lot nicer in my opinion. So I really like that. Some people may disagree, but that's what I think, and I really like it. Now before diving into the next features, I'd want to look at one quick example once again for these zoom features. We've got the wide angle here, and then we move on to 1x, still impressive. The 5x, still sharp, really look good looking. And then 10x, which is in my opinion the best kind of zoom that you can get on a phone. And then 50x, we can even spot a lady on the bridge. So if you want to use this feature for creeping on people, then that's definitely the phone you should get. Now the aperture mode on this phone, we start here with f.95, wide open, a lot of bokeh and background blur. As you can see here, the image is sharp, very nice. I really like the aperture mode on this phone because it doesn't look as digitally manipulated or as artificial as most other phones that I've noticed. So I really like that, and it's also adjustable. So we could see here we moved on to f8, less background blur, less bokeh, and then f16 once again, even less than that. So you could decide how much background blur you want or you prefer based on the image that you're taking. Night mode on this phone, one of the other highlight features of it. You could see here almost no noise whatsoever. This is taken from inside my car. There's a little bit dirt on the window, but I think it gave it a nice cool effect. Also worth noting is sometimes the images have the HDR look to them. Not often, but sometimes they do show. For me, I mentioned earlier, I really don't like that look. Now, in some of those images, they do appear to be brighter than they actually are, but overall, you can't really complain for a night photo, as most phones can't even get usable images in low light to begin with. A few more examples here with the zoom features, the different quad cameras, wide angle, zoomed in, 1x, and then 5x, still the same quality, impressive. 10x, still really good. That's my favorite, as I've said a million times. And then the 50x just loses all sharpness, not all but some. And at this point I'm just gonna keep rambling about how amazing the zoom feature is, zooming in over the same tower for the 4th or 5th time possibly. Right here, this is probably one of my favorite images that I've taken with this phone so far. Even this right here, that's the 10x. And the 50x almost just looks like a stick through the screen, but still really good. I will cover the video features in another video, but here's a few clips that I shot handheld. We can see the stabilization is doing a really good job. It almost looks like it's shot on a gimbal. Sometimes there are some weird little artifacts like warps and kind of like digital glitches, but I think that's due to the stabilization that it's trying to accomplish. It does a fairly good job at keeping everything stable, but generally speaking, if you're using it handheld for everyday use, it's still gonna do an excellent job at keeping everything really stable.
So those were the test shots. Really impressive out of this phone. You've got the 40 megapixel rear camera, and you've got the 2 other focal lengths, 5x and 10x. They do deliver some high quality images at those focal lengths. The 50x, which is the hybrid zoom feature they've been advertising for this phone, it is quite impressive, but the image quality out of it is not that sharp. It is, however, still usable. And also the aperture mode, you can go from f.95 up to f16. You can adjust the aperture for some nice background blur. And the front-facing camera, you've got 32 megapixel. I mean, what more can you ask for a front-facing camera? And the image quality out of it, as I mentioned earlier, it is quite saturated, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because some people just want the best looking images straight out the phone without any editing. So it doesn't give you a accurate representation of the actual colors outside, but it is slightly more saturated. I do recommend this phone, really great cameras, and I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and that's it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.